Welcome to another class this morning, Advanced Communication. We have gone far in the topics that we are meant to cover, and I want to believe that you are all going back to do further research and not rely only on just what we do in class. It's very, very important that you go back to do a research. Mind you, the online class is gradually coming to an end, and you should be prepared to write exams in the areas that we have covered. So today we're going to be looking at using communication for development, communication and development, communication and development. How does communication affect development? How does communication affect development? How does communication affect development? Okay, just hold on. Just hold on. Okay. How does communication affect development? That's what I want us to look at this morning. How does communication affect development? Hold on. Okay. So when we talk about development communication or communication for development, the question we're asking ourselves is, how does communication play a role in the growth and development of any society? You and I are communication professionals. In what way does our role aid the development of the society in which we play or we find ourselves? If you understand what communication is all about, we have defined that, I think, in our first class. We talked about a communication that has to do with exchange of information between a sender and a receiver. Now, if you look at your family setting, can you just imagine you and your family and nobody is talking to each other, nobody's talking to themselves? There's no way there'll be development in that environment. Why? Because everybody feels he or she is competent in herself or himself to do things. Nobody is saying anything that has to do with how the family can move forward. If the family runs out of foodstuff and nobody is talking, you discover that it's going to affect everybody at the end of the day. If there's an issue in the family and nobody seems to want to talk about it, there's no communication in the family. There's what we call family communication. Then you discover that that family remains stagnant. So this is to tell you, or this is to show you, the same thing too in marriage too. A marriage where there is no communication between the man and the woman, there's every tendency that the marriage will soon collapse. So communication is the lifeblood of marriage. Communication is the lifeblood of society. Now, having this understanding that communication is the lifeblood of society, then it goes to show that when it also comes to the growth and the development of any society, communication is inevitable. Communication is inevitable. Now, when we talk about developmental communication, we're referring to the use of communication to facilitate social development. Every society needs to be socially developed, needs social development. You know very well that Nigeria is often referred to as a developing, while countries like US, Canada, UK, and those in Europe are referred to as developed. Now, why did they develop? How did they develop? They developed because there's a free flow of information, free flow of communication there. And so, any environment where there's free flow of information, people are able to discuss, people are able to negotiate, people are aware of their environment, of what is happening, people are aware of governance. It makes development easy. Now, we said development communication refers to the use of communication to facilitate social development. Now, development communication engages stakeholders and policymakers, establishes conducive environment, assesses risk and opportunity, and promote information exchanges to create positive social change. Now, when there is communication in a society, when we talk about communication, we're talking about all the various forms of mass media, all the various means by which, not just mass media, but we also look at face-to-face communication. So all the various means of reaching the people, all the various medium of exchange of the flow of information is what is engaged in, in social development. Now, when we talk about engaging stakeholders in a society, the government, the people are the stakeholders. They work hand in hand to what? To bring about the growth and development of that society. Now, the media people are also stakeholders. So when there is a means of communicating, communication between the governed and the government, or between the electorate and the government, then there's and there's every room for development. The same thing to policymakers. Government is the one that makes policy, and when government makes policy, the people look at the policy and then see whether this policy goes well with them or not. For example, recently we had the issue of closure of border. It was a policy by the government that border should be closed. Now, and a reason was given for the closure of border, even though it did not go down well with the citizenry. But at the end of the day, we discovered that it was for the good of the people. Why? Because we now stop depending on foreign rights to an extent and began to look inward. We began to look inward. I remember during the time of President Obasanjo too, that there was a time he also banned some foreign items like fruit juice, clothing items, and so many other items like that, biscuits, and then that brought about the rebirth, the rebirth of locally producers, people like Chivita came to be, and every other person who is in that space working, producing food juice, and so many other companies to sprang up because we were made to. A policy was made to actually stop foreign importation, stop the citizens from depending on foreign good, foreign items, and then we have to look in what they call it inward integration, looking inward so that we can develop capacity inward, so that farmers can also appreciate the fact that when they plant their seed, there are local consumers of this product, and that's what has happened when when federal government tried to close, the all the borders. It led to what the growth of the agricultural sector. It brought about development. It brought money was made by the local farmers as a result of this. So this part of what development communication tends to achieve. Now we say establishes conducive environment, assesses risk and opportunities. Yes. Now in a society, risk and opportunities are assessed. Now before government took a decision to close the border, it was the whole the society was reviewed to consider, if we close the border, what are the risk implications and what are the opportunities. And at the end of the day, when it was reviewed, the federal government discovered that there are more opportunities for us when border is closed than opening it, than the risk involved, because many government critics, many stakeholders, many human rights activists began to speak because they were looking at the risk. That is it possible for us to survive? Can our local producers meet up with the huge demand for the huge population, and all that? So, but government considered it that we will look at the risk and the opportunity. And when they weigh the risk and the opportunity, discover that the opportunity outweigh. Now, all of this cannot be made possible if there's no line of communication. So it is the media people that ensures that there is a good line of communication. So when we talk about development communication, we're talking about development communication refers to the use of communication to promote information exchange to create positive social change. Positive social change. So that is part of what communication for development brings or foster. Now look at this again. Say why media development matter. The media can be a powerful force for change in both developed and developing countries. So we're saying here that communication is not just communication does not just foster development for those in the developed countries or developing country, but even in developed countries too, there is a need for communication to continually sustain development. So development has to be sustained, and for development to be sustained, the media has to be in play. Now, how is that possible? Look at what is in developing country. It can have an important role in advancing a poor development agenda. So we're saying here that in a country where things are not working, when media development comes into place to advance a poor development agenda as well as supporting economic growth by stimulating the consumer market. So we are the consumer market, and then the media stimulates us to want to to react, to want to give our feedback to the government on certain things, and that's what is happening currently now where it is able to excellently fulfill the role of watchdog, gatekeeper, and agenda setter. It can improve governance by raising citizen awareness of social issues. What we're saying here that the role that the media plays in development in society includes watchdog, gatekeeper, and agenda setter. We have always talked about the roles, the secondary roles of the media, which include the role of watchdog. Remember the primary role, which is to inform, educate, and entertain. We also have the secondary role. So when it comes to developmental communication, we consider the secondary role of the media, which includes watchdog. When we talk about watchdog, somebody that we're talking about surveillance. Surveillance, you call it either surveillance or a watchdog, somebody that watches to see whether things are done wrong or right. So to improve development in society, the media must be there as the watchdog to see whether government intention, government policy, government program to develop society is carried out as at when due. And in the case where it is not done, the media will speak out. The same thing too with gatekeeping and agenda setting. When we talk about gatekeeper, somebody who stands there as a go-between to know, for example, if you look at it naturally, a gate man stands at the door of a compound, and he, he monitors those who are coming in and those who are going out. So the same thing too in the society today. The media acts as the gatekeeper to know what government has in store for the people, and then to let the people know, to expose the program to the people. So you and I were able to know that government decided to shut down the border, close down the border for certain reasons, and that cannot have been made possible without the media acting as the gatekeeper to expose what government brought out for the people. Then agenda setter. When we talk about agenda setter in media development, we're saying that the media brings to the fore, brings up an agenda, brings up an issue that centers on development. Take, for example, the issue of the corona pandemic. The corona pandemic brought about, exposed the weakness of the health sector in Nigeria. So the media began to talk about it. The media began to make noise. It became a discussion because the elites could no longer travel out because that has been their pattern. Anytime they have headache, anytime they cough, they have running nose. What they do is that they take the next available flight to India, to Dubai, to China, and what have you, to go for treatment. But now, Mr. Koro has blocked everybody from traveling back and forth, and so it brought the elites did not have any choice than to also visit the local our own local hospital, and they saw the state of things. Thank God that this has happened, and the money is being pumped into the sector. So the media plays that agenda setting where it begins to bring up issues. If you have been watching Silverbird, not Silverbird, you have been watching Channel has been on top of their game as far as this coronavirus is concerned, and all that. So the media, and they bring up issue, they bring up all sides of the health issue. They bring up apart from discussing issues, there's also what we call advocacy. They show us jingles, they show us campaigns of how we should act and we should act outside. While I mean the need for us to be hygienically conscious at this time. So the need for us to practice social distancing so that we will not be affected. All of these add up to our life. All of these add up to development. We find also another thing that the media does is that the media says enable citizens to hold government account, curbing corruption, and creating a civic room for debate. So part of what the media does to aid development is to let people discuss, to let people talk, to express their mind about certain things that is happening in the environment. So if government wants to construct road, a major road, it brings, it carries the people along. The people discuss. The people are able to negotiate their way to so as to be so as to be involved in governance. So governance is not just a one-man thing. Governance is not just Buhari and his cabinet, not just Trump and his cabinet. No, the people must be governed, must be what carried along. Because when you put infrastructures in place, when you bring up certain program and the people are not part of it, sooner than later, that program will crash. Remember, we have polio injection that government goes to give you. Remember the school feeding program. Even right now that this corona this lockdown has also taken place, children are at home, and then there's this program that the Buhari government was running, which is the school feeding program. Now that they are at home, they said that they want to do school feeding home program. In other words, they will take the food to their homes. Now, all of these are programs targeted at the welfare of the people. They are part of adding value, they are part of development of any society. So when these things are carried out and the people are not given opportunity to express their mind, to share their opinion about it, then such development cannot take place. So the media, the press, the media, the media becomes the middle person, the one that creates the platform for exchange of information, for exchange of communication between the government and the people. And when this is achieved, they find that there's development in that area. Now, the media has also gone to the extent of creating localized radio, rural radio, community newspaper, so that they can reach young people. There are some people in our society, in environment today, that development has not gotten to them. Once upon a time in Niger Delta, they were clamoring for development because that is the place where federal government makes its money, because we take oil from that environment. But unfortunately, at a particular point in time, they were neglected. But thank God for the media. Thank God for opportunity for them to communicate and share their thoughts and share their grievance with the government. And at the end of the day, government began to channel development into that place. Today, they have what we call the Niger Delta Development Commission. Why? Because they were privileged to communicate with the government through the instrument of the mass media. So that is it about development communication. Now, let's look at ethics of journalism. Ethics of journalism. Very important for us to understand ethics of journalism. There's a difference between ethics and law in journalism. There's a difference between ethics and law in journalism. Now, when we talk about ethics, a free press has the capacity to influence others. In a democracy, it has the right to report information without government approval. Now, any society that government has to control, any society where the government has to control the media before it can see anything, is a problem. I don't know whether it was in this class we discussed the four concepts of the press. And one of the concepts of the press is what we call authoritarian government. In authoritarian government, the government is the one that influences what the press will say. But in a libertarian concept of governance, libertarian, that's what we refer to as free press. The press has the capacity to influence others. Now, in a democracy, it has the right to report information without government approval. Why? Because there's a freedom. There is what we call freedom of press, or press freedom that's guaranteed by the 1999 Constitution, that is subsection 39. 1999 Constitution, subsection 39. We have discussed about it. It empowers the press to carry out his operation in any society. I mean, in Nigeria. Let me say in Nigeria. You understand? Then you now have what we call FOI Act, Freedom of Information Act. The Freedom of Information Act of 2011. This is an act that says that government has that the press, the people have the right to actually access official document that is of public interest. So that act, Freedom of Information Act or Freedom of Information Bill of 2011, empowers the media, empowers civil society, empowers you as a citizen to approach your local government chairman to ask him of how much they collect as their revenue, because it is not his father's property. It is not his. He was elected there, so you have a right to call for the books. So the power that the law that empowers the media, the civil society, and the city to make a demand is a Freedom of Information Act of 2011. So many countries provide legal protection to journalists so they can exercise that right. So in a free society, the most basic responsibility of a free press is to report news accurately. Listen to it again. In a free society, the most basic responsibility of a press is to report the news accurately and fairly. That is, to practice what we call ethical journalism. Ethics is a system of principles that guides action. We're talking about the difference between ethics and law. Ethics is a system of principles that guides action, while the law establishes what you can and cannot do in a given situation. In a given situation, I'll take that again. Ethics is a system of principles that guides action, while that is, it guides your action of right or wrong. Oh, I want to report this story. Is what I want to do, is it true? Is it fair? Have I looked at the two sides of the story? But when you talk about law establishes. So law does not say whether I should think about it or not think about it. But ethics tells you to think about it. But ethics still goes forward to tell you, don't do this. That it will prick your conscience. Say the truth all the time. Say the truth all the time. Now, if you as an individual don't say the truth, there's no law in Nigeria that says you'll be arrested because you told a lie to your mother. No. Or you told a lie to your friend. No, the law. But in ethics, your conscience will prick you. So ethics has to do with your own decision, your own action. Now, when we talk about law, why the law establishes what you can do. So it is a law that you must not steal. It's a law that you must not infringe on somebody else's right. It's a law that you must not take, because and the law is backed up by what is written in the Constitution. In other words, you can be sued because it's a law. When you infringe on the law, you can be what? You can be sued, you can be charged to the court of law. While the law establishes what you can and cannot do in a given situation. So I don't know where to get the difference. The law has legal backing, but ethics does not have a legal backing. However, we can see an element of ethics in our Nigerian law. You can see an element of, so there's a fusion of ethics in our law. I don't know if you get the picture now. Okay, so let's move forward. Let's move forward. Ethics in journalism. Okay, ethics in journalism. Now, just give me a moment. Ethics are about journal. When we talk about journalistic ethics, we are talking about values, common value that guide reporters to remain or maintain credibility in the profession. Now, if you know that every profession has their what, their professional. Every profession has their ethics that guides their action. For example, in the medical field, in the accounting field, in the legal field, as a lawyer, there are ethics of your profession that does not permit you to do certain things. For a doctor, if doctor is not supposed to disclose some, I mean, confidentiality. There must be confidentiality in the practice of his profession. Confidentiality of clients. Client is comes to you to complain. A patient comes to you to complain about certain things. It is against the ethics of the profession to expose certain things, except with the consent of the client himself. So every profession has their ethics. Every profession has their ethics. So when we talk about ethics, we're talking about common values that guide reporters in order to remain or maintain credibility in their profession. So credibility is the key thing when any reporter or any journalist is practicing, the profession. Credibility. You must be credible in your dealings. So anything that you do, you ask yourself, what does the ethics of this our profession say? Now, some of the ethics, time will not permit us to exhaust all, but we can take a few. For example, there are several key ethical standards. Now, ethics is important because it provides a standard for the operation. I mean, for the activity or the engagement of the press, of the media person in the field, in practice. Just like in the medical and accounting field, there are some things that you don't do because against the standard. So ethics are in place, professional ethics are in place to provide a general standard, a basis for operation. Because if there are no general standard, everybody in the profession, every member of that profession will be doing what comes to their mind, will be doing what they feel they should do. Although there's a place of doing things based on your conscience, based on morality. But the truth is that in every professional organization, there are standards. So ethics exist to guide action and also to provide standard in the practice of the profession. So number one I have here is that honesty. Honesty is very important in the practice of journalism. There are several key ethical standards that appear across global news organizations. At the highest level, they call on journalists to seek truth, act in the public interest, and minimize harm. In the practice of journalism, at the highest level, journalism calls for truth, always act in the public interest. So when you practice, the standard practice in journalism is that you must act in the public interest, and then you must always seek the truth and then minimize harm. Whatever, in as much as possible, that there's what we call freedom of the press, freedom to distribute information, to share information. You must be cautious that the standard practice is that your information, the news you are passing across, does not harm the public. So you are acting in public interest, and you're acting in public, you must what? Minimize harm. You must minimize harm. We have over 10 minutes more. You must minimize harm. Another thing is then honest, like I said, honesty, like they say, is the best policy. You must be honest in everything you are doing. That is, you avoid squashing the truth. Somebody gives you a lead to an information, then you go and find out. And when you find out and you discover that the person who is concerned about an issue somehow is somebody who is related to you somehow. Now, the standard practice, normally the human mind wants to say, this is my brother, don't let me expose this person. But if you are on the line of duty, the standard practice, the ethical practice is that you must be honest. You must be honest. You must not be deceptive in carrying out your journalistic assignment. The other point is independence. It is ethical for you to maintain independence in the practice of journalism. When we talk about independence, we're saying that you don't take side. You don't take side in any matter at all. You lay the facts and let the people decide. You don't decide for the people. That's what the practice of journalism is all about. You go and you don't decide for the people. You are independent in your practice. You are neutral in your practice. You are not partisan. You are not loyal to any party. You are not part. You are not PDP. You are not. You are not. You are not APC. You are not in SDP. But you are just independent because that is what the practice entails. Then we have what we call fairness. You must be fair in the practice of journalism. So journalism ethics require that you must be fair in everything you are doing. If you are reporting on a case, there must be fairness in it, no matter who is affected. I remember, if you have been following the news, you discover that there are some public officers who have actually done what is not right, and the media has been fair in their reporting. No, despite their status. For example, in the governor of what's it called, is it Rivers, Governor Wike, in the course of, was it last week or over the weekend, decided to pull down a hotel. Now, what is the offense of the hotel? That they did not lock down, and because they did not lock down, they decided to what, demolish, to pull down a hotel. Now that is going too far. That is going against the established law. Now, rather than cover him up, the media was fair enough to what, to report the matter as it is. And right now, so many human rights lawyers are also talking that he has heard on the side of the law. So that is what journalism is all about. You are not expected to what, to be partisan. You are not expected to take side with any governor or any president. You must be, although there are temptations, yes, it's part of the challenges of the profession, where you'll be gifted brown envelope. They will tempt you, they will credit your account, they want you to compromise on the story, but ethically, you are not supposed to compromise. Anyway, in practice, we see many professionals in this journalism practice. We see them falter. We see them compromising in practice. So you are a student and you are learning this in the class, and then you can make a difference when you come out. You can make a difference when you come out. We have about 5 minutes more. Public accountability is also part of the ethics of the profession. Public accountability and minimization, avoid libel. Public accountability. Another point is harm minimization. Whatever you are sending out, you don't have the people. We have had challenges with online. Maybe our next slide will be online journalism. What are the challenges that are in online journalism? Maybe you can send that as an assignment to me. Your own observation. Write maybe about five observation of what you see as a challenge of online journalism. So online journalism, one of the challenges is what, several information has been, or what we call citizen journalism. Online journalism has created room for the practice of citizen journalism, where everybody with their mobile phones can try to send anything. There are some people who have sent nude pictures of maybe their partners or their friends, or their spouses, because of an issue that they could have resolved. That is harming that person. That's so. But the practice of journalism, true journalism, is that there must be harm minimization. So it is ethical for you to avoid harming anybody with your information. The other point is avoid libel. When we talk about libel, when you write an information that is untrue, just because you want to discredit somebody, you want to use your pen to make sure you damage somebody's character. So the standard is that you must write facts, you must write true, you must be fair, and avoid what we call libel. There's also what we call slander. Well, slander is mostly when you're on TV, when you're on radio, when you say what is not right about a person. The person, now this is where you see the connecting point between ethics and law, because in the law of Nigeria, you are the 1999 Constitution, subsection 39, that I made mention about, that gives every Nigerian the right to express themselves, your right to freedom of expression. Now, when you contravene somebody's freedom of expression, you are charged to the court of the law. You are charged to the court of law. So the law also provides that in your expressing your fundamental human right to be allowed to express yourself by speaking freely, distributing information, you must make sure that you don't write to damage and you don't speak to damage. Otherwise, there's a provision of the law that says you can be charged for libel, you can be charged for slander. So that is a standard in is an ethical standard in journalism and is also in the constitution. So when you infringe on that as a journalist, then the law will come in this time around to now take you off. Now, two more points. That nonsense sensationalism. Non-sensationalism. You must not be sensational in your practice of journalism. Do not be sensational in your practice of journalism. When we talk about sensational, we're talking about writing a story and trying to color it. Try to, for example, maybe an actor or an actress, and then the person is involved in a relationship, and because you want your publication to sell, you now begin to write, and proconnoting and intruding into the person's privacy. Now there is a law in the constitution of Nigeria that everybody has a right to privacy, but because you feel you are a journalist and then the people you hold the people interest at heart, knowing, but you know in your heart that all you want to do is to write so that the person's character, because you know he's an actor, that people love gist. And so in writing your gist, you are damaging the person's character. So many marriages of Nollywood of stars today has been destroyed simply because of media intervening or intruding into their personal life. I remember the story of the prince of is it I can't remember this that they call this paparazzi thing. I forgot. I can't remember now. Where the wife died as a result of media intrusion. They were following them up and down, and all that. And also, if you're a follower of Linda KG2, you see a lot of sensationalizing in there. You see a lot of magazines that are sensational, trying to color story, trying to make things that are normal stories to be bigger than what it is. Now, when you do that, you are not practicing journalism. So journalism is not sensational. Journalism is factual. Sensationalism is adding your own ajasa, jara, putting your own just to color it, just because you want to sell your paper fast, and somebody, maybe for example, a Nollywood actress or actress, give birth to a child that has issues, and then you blow it up that yes, Lagbaja gave birth to a baby with big head or swollen head. Meanwhile, it was just a normal thing that the medical people can attend to, but you decide to blow it out of proportion. That is what sensationalizing, and that is against the ethics of the practice of journalism. So, well, this is the much that time can enable us to take. Maybe next week we'll round up with online and citizen journalism, and then if you have any question, you can always reach me on WhatsApp or you can send email to me, Mr. Is it Mr. Kwadonu online class at gmail.com. So please make sure you read all that we have shared, all we have talked about, and then you can always get prepared for your exam, because definitely you are going to write exam very, very soon. So thank you very much for listening and enjoy your day. Bless you.